Lord in heaven, it's been a while. Hi friends. I apologize for this very late wrap up for April. We are literally a week away from the end of May. I'm sorry. It's been a bit hectic, which we kind of knew May was going to be hectic. But I'm here for an April wrap up, and then in a couple weeks I will do a May wrap up. I wanted to at least get a video out this week because I didn't on the weekend. So let's just get into it. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. The support has been incredible and amazing, and that's the same word, but I just have a lot of feelings, so thank you so much. I wanted to say something else as well, but I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, very close to submission, so keep your fingers crossed for me. So most of the books that I read in the month of April, there were 11 books. 7 of those books, I'm pretty sure 7, were for the Women's Prize. So if you don't know, I read the Women's Prize for Fiction's long list this year, and it was an endeavour that I embarked on, and it was a choice that I made. Okay, but I'm pretty sure it was 7 books out of the 11. It was a bit of an up and down month, I want to say. If I look at my stats just really quickly, my average rating was 4 stars, which is pretty good. But mind you, that did include 2 rereads that were 5 stars. And I mostly read 4.5 and 5-star books, 3 for each, which that's pretty good, I have to admit. So I'm just gonna stop waffling on. I'm gonna get right into the books. I'm gonna first start with the Women's Prize books because they're the most easiest to get through since I've talked about them at length. So I'm literally not going to say anything about what it's about. I'm just gonna say if I enjoyed it, if I didn't, my rating, if I gave it 1, and that's really it, because you've listened to me talk for hours about these books. So let's just talk like chronologically, I guess, in terms of the ones that I read for the Women's Prize. I've got so many books here. Okay, so the first book that I read in the month of April for the Women's Prize was Cursed Bread by Sophie McKintosh. I loved this. It was so... It unsettles you. It's a bit icky. It makes you feel icky. But I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. My opinion, one of the best books on the long list. I just want to say, like, if you don't enjoy vibes, like, and no plot, then don't pick this book up. There is, I think in the back, yeah, it says in the back, you know, there's like a mass poisoning that's happening. The mass poisoning aspect that's happening it's like on the periphery. It's very small in comparison to what this book actually is, which is just vibes and also obsession. It's a character study, okay? Anyway, I loved this. Not everyone's cup of tea, but if you enjoy similar kind of books like Otessa Moshfegh, maybe even Rachel Yoda with a hint of Sally Rooney, you might have a new book to read, if that makes sense. I feel like I haven't done this in so long that I've lost the ability to speak about books. Anyway, and then the next book that I read for the Women's Prize was The Dog of the North. I did not like this book. 2.5 stars. Moving on. I then read Wandering Souls by Cecile for the Women's Prize. I gave this 5 stars. This was absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend you watch my episode of reading the Women's Prize long list where I talk about this book, because I just loved what it did. The fact that it wasn't on the short list astounds me. I cried so heavily. Read it. Read it. It is about family, belonging, the precarity felt by refugee families, and just and racism, really. And I highly implore you to read it. It was brilliant. I cannot wait to see what Cecile does in the future. Holy shit. And then I read Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. I feel like I'm going through these really quickly, but I am. I then read Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks for the Women's Prize. I thought this was good. I gave this 4 stars, and I think that, like, for me personally, I really liked the way it was written. I think I understand why Fire Rush was on the short list. It is a book that is unique and very refreshing. The way that it's written is very unique as well. Like, it's like big brain energy, but there are a few things that didn't quite work for me, and I think overall it was good but not incredible. Maybe just about the execution, but I still think it is a book that should be read. I learnt a lot, actually, and I also really loved the way Jacqueline Crooks writes. Like, if you've read Fire Rush, you know the importance of like song and dub. Oh my god, I went blank. Of song, music, dub music, and how that actually became like fully a part of the way that the story was written. Like, it was just really good in that regard. And then moving on to the next book for the Women's Prize long list, it was Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. Now, I gave this 3 stars, but honestly, like, looking back, probably would give it lower. I did not like this book. I liked aspects of it, mainly the way that the gods and goddesses were written. I think they were written in a way that really emphasized how inhuman, oh my god. I've used all of my words and I can't use them right now. Like, English is hard. Sorry. But I like the way that the gods and goddesses were written. Everything else, no. This is not Medusa's story. Do not read this if you think it's Medusa's story. It is not her story. She is but in the periphery of her own story, which in itself, like, there is a conversation to be had about calling a story a feminist retelling and then not actually centering the character that it's supposed to be. Like, I feel like it's going against what it's supposed to be doing. Anyway, no. Moving on. I then read, oh my god, yeah. I then read Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. My first Barbara Kingsolver, but definitely not my last. I loved this. This was brilliant. If this or The Marriage Portrait doesn't win the Women's Prize, I'm really worried about its future. This is a retelling of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, told in modern society about like modern problems, and it's just brilliant. Barbara Kingsolver really took a story that has been around for ages and was like, yeah, I'll make it my own, and she did. Like, yes, this is a very true retelling, and I would not recommend reading David Copperfield and Demon Copperhead soon after each other because they are the same story. But oh my lord in heaven, this was just spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I honestly think this is a great introduction to Barbara Kingsolver, even though I'm saying that as someone who was introduced to Barbara Kingsolver through Demon Copperhead. I just could not stop reading this book. And I think when I, again, watched the episode where I read this book for more of my feelings and thoughts, but the way that I felt about David Copperfield, I felt reading this book. It was such a good feeling. And Damon is such a true character that you feel like he's real. And the way that it ends, it is so heartbreaking but so hopeful. I was like, oh my god, is life worth living? Like, it was just so wonderful. I really loved this. It took me a while to get into though, but it was very well worth it. And then in April I read I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. If you know, you know. I loved this book. Gave 4.5 stars. Okay, it's similar to like the Cursed Bread situation. I loved it. It was not what I expected. It was actually more than I expected. I just thought it was going to be, you know, no plot, all vibes about a woman doing questionable choices in her life and just that. But it was more. It was a commentary about privilege and wealth and class and race and culture. It was so unique. I think one of the most unique on the long list, and Sheena Patel is definitely doing things that are different. like I don't know. I read this in like maybe 2 hours. It's a very small novel, and I physically could not stop myself from reading. There are trigger warnings though, because the main character is not a very good person. She, I think, has her own trauma, and she herself then acts out to her partner when she feels like her life is losing control. So she is abusive. So please be careful, please be safe. Also, for like every book that I mention, check the trigger warnings, particularly for Demon Copperhead, for Fire Rush, and Wandering Souls as well. Okay, please take care of yourself. Now that's the books that I read for Women's Prize. Let's talk about the books that I read for funsies. Now the first book that I finished in April was this, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I read this with my very dear friends, Emma and Tiff. You know who you are, and I love you. We read this together, and it was an incredible experience. We loved it. I don't know how to explain this book. It's like a sci-fi murder mystery, and it's about time. Yeah, there's like, you body swap. I don't want to tell, I don't think anyone should know what this book is about. Don't even read the blurb, because there are parts of the blurb that you don't find out for like 100 pages. So don't read the blurb. Just, if that interests you, maybe pick it up. Yeah, we loved this. This is a mindfuck in like the purest sense. You have no idea what's going on for most of the book. And then when you think you know what's going on, you don't know what's going on. Your head, you're like, oh, this is what's going to happen. You can't predict it. And there are some parts maybe you think you can, but no, you don't. I thought that this was just so interesting, so engaging, so different to what I typically read in like the murder mystery field, which is not a lot, mind you. But yeah, really good, really good. However, I gave this 4 stars. However, fat phobia is rampant in this, okay? I would have to say that maybe the first like 150 pages, because of the host that the main character is in, it's very fat phobic. It was kind of triggering, so be very careful about that. That's why I don't think this would ever get for me higher than a 4, because it affected me a bit. But other than that, the story, fascinating. And what was that? And the next book that I read for funsies was Sorry Bro by Taleen Voskuni. Now this was a bit of a disappointment. This is advertised as like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but make it queer and make it Armenian. That's not what it is. This is not a rom-com. I don't know why it's pushing itself as a rom-com, but it's definitely not. It's actually, it covers a lot of like important topics, especially about identity and culture, and obviously sexuality. And I just think that you have this main character, and honestly, like, I've forgotten most of the story because it was kind of forgettable, but you have this main character who breaks up with her boyfriend who proposed to her in front of like everyone. It was just really uncomfortable, and she decides that, you know, she needs a break because he's going to Germany or something. And then she's like, you know what, I'm gonna tell my mum, who's Armenian, and who has been, you know, vocal in the past about settling down with an Armenian boy. Like, I'm interested in like partnering up with an Armenian person. Mind you, the mother doesn't know that her daughter is bisexual. So that's what she starts doing. She starts going to like Armenian events and meetups to like meet more Armenian people. And as she does that, she realizes that she's quite disconnected to her own roots as a result of like her own choices, but also the way that she was brought up, especially with her father, who like really wanted the American dream, and he thought in order to have the American dream he couldn't be Armenian. So that kind of went to her as well. You have really weird points where she is like, oh, it's just so annoying that Armenians go on and on about the Armenian genocide. It's just like, it's gone, it's happened, it's in the past. And I'm just like, babe, what? And luckily she does get kind of confronted by it, and she has like a come to Jesus moment a little bit later. But it was very strange. I think a lot of how this book is written is just, I feel like it needed a bit more time in the oven to cook, if that makes sense. Some of the things that she says about herself and about her sexuality, again, was a bit strange. And it could be like an internalization of, you know, biphobia or whatever, but it wasn't necessarily done in that way. I don't know. I've looked at other reviews, and a few other people were just like, I have this feeling and I don't know how to really pinpoint this feeling, but I know it's not a good feeling. And it's not a rom-com, it's very serious, and there's just her and her relationship with the woman that she, you know, falls into a situation with, happens like a week after she breaks up with her ex. And then when her current girlfriend finds out about that and about how she was proposed to, she is understandably upset. And the main character's like, oh, I didn't think, you know, it was that big of a deal. It's like, isn't it? Anyway, I just thought there were a lot of things that I think could have been done a bit better. But it might honestly just be because it's a debut novel, and these are the sorts of things that will get ironed out in later kind of books. But I was disappointed because that was a book that I was looking forward to, and unfortunately it kind of disappointed me. I then did 2 rereads, and these are the last like 2 books that I read for the month. My first reread was Bunny by Mona Awad, and yes, I literally read this in the month of March, but I reread this because I'm doing like this like kind of a book swap / book club with Emma and Tiff, who I just mentioned previously, and I wanted them to read Bunny, so I reread it and annotated it, and then I think now Emma has it. I think she's finished it. I am just so interested to see what they think because it's wild. I love Bunny. I gave it 5 stars again. I feel like the more that you read Bunny, the more that you fall in love with it, and I can't wait to read more of Mona Awad. I know that she's coming out with a new novel later this year. I really want to get my hands on All's Well, which has been really difficult to find in store. Where are the copies of All's Well? Tell me, because they're not where I am. No idea where they are. So that was a really great experience. I then finally finished my reread of Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel in my bid to finish this entire trilogy this year. So I started actually reading this last year. I started rereading this last year because I was just using, I've read this and annotated this already, but I wanted to reread it, and I was like, oh, you know what? I've heard that the audiobook is really good. The audiobook is absolutely fantastic. If you have Scribd and Wolf Hall audiobook is available, do it. I'll leave a link down below. It is just such an experience. The voice narrator, whose name completely escapes me, but I'll put it down below, he actually like acts this out. I think he was one of the actors on like the Broadway play for Wolf Hall. He actually like acts the scenes out. Like he does the like, you know, just like the actually when a character laughs, he actually laughs, like, and it was just really good. I loved the way that he brought to life this story. It was really fun. So I've been slowly reading the audiobook, as well as like physically reading and following along, but a really great experience. Highly recommend. This was another 5 stars. Wolf Hall is one of the best historical fiction novels ever. Mind you, I haven't read a lot of historical fiction novels, but I love this. I love this book so much. I love the way that Hilary Mantel writes. I love the way that she brings to life these characters. Thomas Cromwell, like everyone. It's so good. That's even an understatement. This is brilliant, and I am honestly so excited to continue on with this trilogy, but also absolutely terrified because we all know how it ends. So, woo! But yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna start reading the next book, but I think I want it to be definitely after I submit my thesis. And that's the end of my wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really sorry for the delay. It's been a bit hectic. I've kind of been a hermit, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't even watched booktube. I know. So I'm going to start slowly getting back into it. I actually started reading a book today for the first time in 2 weeks, so that's really exciting. But yeah, so it's been an interesting month. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. If anything changes, I will definitely let you know. If you haven't already, subscribe please. I really love the little community that we're building here. And until next time, take care friends. Bye.